Hello, and welcome to this Tungsten Replicator Masterclass training session where we'll be taking a look at some basic replicator maintenance. My name is Chris Parker, VP of Customer Success here at Continuant. So in this short course, we're going to look at some maintenance operations. So how do we start and stop the software, how do we upgrade the software, and how do we update some of the parameters. So stopping and starting. Well, the replicator is a Java process, and to simply stop and start this process, you issue the replicator stop or start as shown on the screen. You can also issue restart to do both actions, or status to see the running state of the process. Stopping the replicator Java process terminates all replication services that it is managing. So if your replicator is managing multiple services, you need to be aware that this will stop them all. If you only wanted to stop one particular service, you can use the offline commands that I will show on the next slide. It is good practice to ensure the replicator automatically restarts if the hosts were to be rebooted. To do that, you can issue the deploy all command, which will register the service with the systemctl functions of your operating system. Alternatively, you can include install equals true into your configuration file before you install the software, and this will set that up for you. To reverse this, you can just issue undeploy all. So as mentioned on the previous slide, the replicator stop start will terminate the entire Java process. If you're looking to simply take a service offline, you can use the trepctl offline command or the trepctl online command to bring it online. If you have multiple services running, then you will need to also specify the service name that you wish to take the action against. Upgrading Tungsten Replicator is very easy. First, always review the release notes, and if possible, always test and upgrade in a development or test environment first. Simply download the software from the Continuant download portal, extract the software into the staging directory on every node, and then run the tpm validate command and the tpm update commands as shown here. I will show this shortly in a demonstration. Changing properties for the replicator is also a simple process. Naturally, ensure you have studied the documentation so that you fully understand the use of the properties, as some may require more work than simply adding to the file, such as changing the THL location or enabling SSLs and filters. Once you've made the change to the INI file, you just simply issue tpm update. And again, I will show this in the demonstration, which I will do now. So let's switch to our screen. From here, I have two replicators running. On the left, I have the host name is ext1, and on the right, the host name is app1. I currently have the replicator running on here, and if I look at trepctl status, I can see that we're running, the replicator is up and running, and I'm currently running Tungsten Replicator version 8.0.0, and I'm going to do an upgrade to take this to the next version. Before that, I will just show you the replicator start stop and the offline online commands. So if I issue replicator status, this will tell me that the replicator service is running and the PID of that service. This is the Java process. Okay, so this is just the actual software that's running for the replicator. You can then issue replicator stop, replicator start, or replicator restart to stop that Java process. As I mentioned, if you're running multiple services within the replicator, it's doing multiple targets, for example, and you only want to stop the flow of replication between one of those targets, then you would simply use the trepctl offline command. If I just issue that on both of my services, if I then go to trepctl status, the Java process is still running, but I've taken the replication service offline, so replication is no longer flowing. So there are two different ways to start and stop depending upon the action that you want to take. So I'm just going to take that back online now. And then check the status, and we see that everything is good. So the next step is, how do we do an upgrade? Well, if we go to opt continuant software, so this is my software staging directory. This is where I do all of the installs from and the updates. And in there, I've already downloaded the package for 8.0.1, which is the version that I want to upgrade to. So first of all, we'll extract that package, and then we'll change into that directory. We can then do tools tpm validate update. And what this will do is it will just validate there are no new prerequisites required, make sure everything is in place, and that the upgrade will run. If it has any issues, it will give some warnings and it will explain what you need to do. So the warnings we've got here are the typical warnings that we would have had on install. It's just talking about open file limits. Again, this is my own development test environment, so I'm not too worried about these. They are only warnings. They're not saying there's anything particularly wrong. If this was a production environment, I would take more notice of these and I would update open file limits and things like that to make sure that the resources are allocated properly on these hosts. But I know that's okay. I'm going to ignore that. So no other errors have come up, so we are okay to upgrade. So we can now do the tools TPM update, replace, release. Now as part of this process, it will put the new software in place and it will actually do a restart of the software. So effectively that replicator restart command that we can do manually will actually be handled in this process. So you need to be aware that if you're doing this, your replication will stop momentarily during the upgrade. So let's just run that now and just wait a few moments for that to complete. Again, the same warnings that we saw in the validate update are shown. Again, they are warnings. I'm happy to ignore them because it's my development system and I don't really need to worry about that level of resources. Okay, the update is complete on both services. As part of that update, the replicators, as I say, they are restarted and they will be brought back online. So we can simply go trepctl status and we'll be able to see that the replicators are still running, everything is okay. And we can see from the version here that we are now upgraded and we're now running the latest release. So that was a very simple software upgrade. So how do we change parameters? Well, if we open up the INI file, and in here you can either adjust the property you want to change or add the property in that you want to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in THL log retention and I'm going to reduce that down to 3 days. So THL log retention is by default 7 days, and this is how often we will clear up the THL log files. I'm going to reduce it to 3 days. It's similar to bin log retention in MySQL. What I will say before you blindly go ahead and reduce this retention period is to do this with caution. If you lose THL logs, we can rebuild them providing we still have the binary logs. But if you reduce the binary log retention and the THL log retention too low and they're expired out, your replicator goes offline, you don't realize. If you've lost those binary logs, we can't regenerate them. So don't be too aggressive with your retention unless you have some really good monitoring in place to make sure that if things go wrong, you can react and respond to it very, very quickly. So I've added the property into the INI file. I'm going to save that file. And then all I'm going to do is TPM update. Previously, when I did the upgrade, I ran the TPM update from that software staging directory. And that's because I'm replacing my existing running version with that particular software. So I run the TPM update from within that staging directory. If I'm making changes to the software that is already running, I don't need to change to that directory. I can just run TPM update and this will call the TPM of the running software and it will just apply those changes for me. And then it's very similar to the install process. Again, those warnings will come up. And again, in my situation for my development environment, I'm just ignoring those. And there we go. That's it. The update is complete. My properties are now updated and my replicator is still running, which is great. And there we go. Some very simple, basic maintenance tasks. We look at some of the more advanced options, fine-tuning, filters, SSL and things like that in later courses. But this is just sort of a basic introduction to some very simple maintenance operations. So in summary, what have we learned? Well, we learned how to stop the software, the difference between starting and stopping the Java process versus the replication service. We talked about upgrading the Tungsten software and how to update some parameters, and then I ran through a demonstration of doing that. So I hope you found this course useful. I hope it gave you enough information for the basics of getting started with Tungsten Replicator, and I hope to see you again soon on another training course. Thank you and goodbye.